a retro gamer and hobbyist artist with a lot of nerve. Crolister, the master of ponage. Hi guys, Crolister here with the Super Smash Bros. Discussion video. In this video, I will be using Tier Maker to show my opinion on every character in the game. I already did a video like this a while ago, however I deleted it because that video was awful, quality-wise, and I was either too harsh or not harsh enough on some characters, so I wanted to adjust my opinions and make it be for a better discussion. So, here we go. Alright, so here I am on Tier Maker. This is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with Smash Wiki icons. And I personalized the tier list so that it has 6 tiers. And I rearranged the characters in it so that they be in numerical order instead of alphabetical order. And I'll be omitting the counterpart characters at the very bottom from the list. So this is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to give my opinion on every character in the series, and I'll give my thoughts on the character themselves as well as what I think of them in Smash. And kind of take both into account to determine where I think they should go on the list. And I haven't played that many different games, so it's not like I have a bias for every single character. S are the characters I like the most. A, I like. B, neutral. C, kind of mediocre. D does not mean I dislike them, just that I think they could have been better and I'm kind of mixed on. And F are like the characters I refuse to play. And if it isn't obvious, this list is entirely my own personal opinion only, and some people are not going to like some of the characters I put in some of the tiers for a fact. If I insult one of your favorite characters and I offend you, yeah, I sound like Squilliam Fancy Son. I sound like Roger from American Dad. I sound like Professor Hubert Farnsworth. Bring it the heck on. So, hopefully some of you people will be decent and respect my opinions. And with that being said, here's my opinion on every Smash character. Mario. Of course I like Mario. He's arguably the most iconic video game character of all of them, and has some games that are decently fun to play. He's pretty fun to use in Smash as well, despite being the character that's supposed to be the all-arounder. I kinda wish they wouldn't retain Flood from Sunshine, because that move is utterly useless, at least for me. Though he's definitely still a character I respect in general. And one of the main reasons why you should buy a Nintendo console to play certain games anyway, because, Mario's what they do. And yeah, definitely a good character. Donkey Kong. While I'm not the biggest Donkey Kong Country series fan, the first non-Pokemon Nintendo game I ever played was Donkey Kong on the Game Boy, which I can still play because of Nintendo Switch Online. And Donkey Kong's still a pretty cool character. While he's not great as a Smash fighter statistically, he can have fun moments, and some moments where he can be pretty good in single player. So, Donkey Kong's pretty cool. I'd say he's more of a B than an A for me. So, Link. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Legend of Zelda fan. So, Link is just a character I have to appreciate in general, for just a few Zelda games I played that I will play if I had to play, like the N64 ones. And Link's still a cool character in general. I do think the Breath of the Wild favor helped him a lot in Ultimate and made him better than he was in previous games. And it's always cool to see characters get some significant moveset revisions while not being different from how they played in older Smash games simultaneously. Link's cool. Samus Aran. I am a massive classic Metroid fan and have played all of the classic format Metroid games, the ones that are not Prime related, so I definitely like Samus a lot as a character. And, sorry about the ad, I thought I had it covered up. And I use Samus a lot in some of the older Smash games. The revision they gave in Ultimate, where multi-hitting attacks are easier to land every hit with, helps Samus actually a lot in the game. And she's pretty fun to play, especially in casual scenarios. And Samus being the first iconic female video game character is definitely a milestone at best. So, I would even say I love Samus. Fantastic character. Dark Samus. I think it makes sense. Dark Samus was a assist trophy in 4 and is an Echo in Ultimate. And it makes sense because Metroid needed more reps regardless. And Dark Samus has some pretty dope animations with how it moves, with the levitational field and certain animations. And its explosion attacks electrify the opponent instead of burning them, which can make a difference in spirit battles. Besides that, though, they're identical, and I am not a fan of Echo Fighters. They're just the lazy man's newcomers. And I'm not as familiar with the Metroid Prime series, so it's whatever. Yoshi. Yoshi might be my favorite Mario character. He's adorable, he has a fun personality, and he is one of the best and most popular Mario characters to make fan art of. And parodies, as somebody that's been on DeviantArt for a couple of years now. So, yeah. Yoshi is also really fun to play in Smash, especially in the latter games. Although some people hate him because he can be obnoxious to fight against, and that's valid. I think Yoshi's really fun to play, and it's always hilarious to see him do well even in Melee against Marth or other high-tier characters. And I like Yoshi a lot. I love to make fan art of him at will, so, yeah, I'd say he's an S as well. Kirby. I like what I've played of the Kirby games, which are a lot of the older ones. Kirby has some pretty fun games like Mario himself, and he is Masahiro Sakurai's own character, the creator of the Smash series as well, so I respect Kirby for that reason. He can be fun to play casually, though it's pretty mediocre statistically in the game. The copy ability is still a cool concept, and he does get some tweaks here and there in different games. So, the Puttball's pretty cool. More of a B for me, though, I'd say. Fox McCloud, the leader of Star Fox. I definitely feel like Star Fox is one of those franchises that's beyond saving, even if it does eventually get another sequel. And Fox can be a pain to go up against as a Smash fighter, while being a pretty hard character to use as a player. He's very light and lacks power, though his immense speed and how good he is at intercepting people make up for that entirely for the competitive scene. Definitely a character for the pro players, though still a cool character in general. Pikachu, the mascot of one of my main franchises, especially for fan art, Pokemon. I've been familiar with Pokemon forever, since I've been alive, and Pikachu has always been one of my favorites just because it's the mascot and one of the first Pokemon that comes to my and others' minds upon hearing the franchise's name be spoken. And as a Smash fighter, Pikachu is amazing across the board. Hard to master, though definitely a character I'd say is worth mastering for certain game modes. And I love how Pikachu Libre from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire was an alternate costume in Ultimate. So, yeah. Definitely love Pika. Luigi, the eternal understudy. Like Mario, I respect Luigi. He's a pretty kooky character, pretty funny personality with being a coward, even if he is getting a little bit more confident in recent years. And as a Smash fighter, he is different enough to Mario by moveset, in a hilarious way, if I may add. And for some reason, Luigi is one of the hardest, if not the hardest, opponent to defeat in the game as a CPU in versus mode. He definitely was in Brawl. So I thought that was kind of funny as well. The suction shot grab was a nice touch in Ultimate, though it does make getting grabbed by him and trying to grab the opponent both at one a bit of a pain. So, Luigi's pretty cool, actually. Ness. I haven't played or plan to play the Earthbound games, so Ness isn't really a character I know that much about, though I do know the games help create Pokemon later. And Ness does kind of have the trainer's characteristics, specifically in the games that they're from. You know, he's a young kid with psychic abilities and has a yo-yo and a baseball bat for weapons, which is kind of funny. And Ness is a pretty good fighter in the game, and another character that people see as a nightmare in online matches in particular. So, you know, I think Ness is alright as a character, though I'm definitely not into a lot of role-playing games. Captain Falcon. The main face of the F-Zero franchise, which is a racing game, and probably the most iconic Super Smash Bros. Character, since he was the first character finalized in Smash. Well, kinda. Super Smash Bros. Was going to be a game called Ryujin Fighting Game, and they basically scrapped the game and turned it into Super Smash Bros. Because they couldn't come up with their own characters. So they used Nintendo's characters instead, out of persuading them to pass the idea. And they basically kept the moveset from one of the characters from the original project and turned him into Captain Falcon. So Falcon's moveset was the first moveset made in the game. And he has some of the most iconic quotes and moves as well, like, Falcon, punch! Which getting a knockout with is always very satisfying. And he's pretty fun to use. Unless you're playing Brawl, then he sucks, undeservingly. In the other games, though, even Ultimate, Captain Falcon's pretty cool. I would be nuts to rank him any lower than A, I would say. Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff. I can't stand that trolling nuisance. Peach and Daisy. The Mario Princesses. I used to dislike Peach, though as I grew more into being into Nintendo, of a console selection, mainly because of Smash and Pokemon back in the day, Peach definitely grew on me a lot more, and now I quite like her. I never used her in Melee because I sucked with her in Melee. In the other games, though, I can legitimately use her. And Peach is definitely also one of the better characters in the game in Smash Ultimate. Daisy is cool for the personality value and for Luigi having a soulmate, though, apart from some animations and using the blue Toad instead of the red one, they do play identically, so it's gonna have to be whatever for that reason. Peach is pretty cool, Daisy's also alright, I'm just not a fan of clones. Bowser, the main antagonist of the Mario series. Bowser wasn't very good, honestly, in Melee and Brawl. In 4 and Ultimate, though, he is a lot better. Not high tier better, just better for being fun to use casually and in certain one-player modes. Though he does have one of the worst routes in Classic Mode in Ultimate. The mobility update they gave to Bowser helped him a lot in Ultimate and 4, so, you know. And he is a pretty awesome character, even though that song he sings in the Super Mario Bros. Movie gets stuck in your head. So, I like Bowser a lot in general, so. Popo and Nana, the Ice Climbers. Not the biggest fan. While I do think a combo character like them is a cool concept and very unique, they're not that much fun to play in the game, especially in Ultimate. You know, if your partner Ice Climber falls, you're pretty much screwed. And the better moves that they have are really hard to pull off. So, you know. It also kind of doesn't help that Nana panics if Popo gets grabbed. or in some of their skins the other way around, depending on which one is your main climber. I understand that their exclusion from 4 was purely because of 3DS hardware limitations with AIs. And they are a character that they chose for the retro value. They just wanted an 8-bit character in Melee, and they were just the best possible choice they could come up with. Though still kind of a meh character in my opinion. Sheik, from the Legend of Zelda series. Sheik's a pretty cool character. She's a ninja-like character. She's Zelda in disguise. She helped Link by teaching him songs to warp into different places with her harp and his ocarina. You know, pretty cool concept. Sheik was definitely better in Melee and 4 than she was in Brawl and Ultimate. And, you know, she's another character you'd like if you like faster hits and faster speed over power and endurance, I guess. So, yeah. Zelda. Zelda's another character that got a bit of an update from her more recent appearances, like Link, except they put her in the Skyward Sword depiction instead of Breath of the Wild, compared to Twilight Princess before. The reason why Sheik and Zelda were separate was because of 3DS hardware limitations. The 3DS couldn't handle transforming characters in Smash, and so they were separated. Though it's still unlikely that a Smash player would still favor Zelda over Sheik in general. Weak, slow, and lightweight, she's not very special at all. Dr. Mario. Why did they bring Dr. Mario back in 4? Exactly. If he was going to be an alternate costume character, and you wanted him to still use the Mega Vitamins and stuff, you should have cut him from the game instead of made him be a clone character. Nobody wants him to still take up his own spot like he does in all the games he's in, besides Brawl and the original. And Dr. Mario just sucks in general as a Smash fighter. Like in Ultimate, he's on limb of being in the F tier, according to the tier list that I actually saw before I made this video, making him an even bigger waste of a spot on the roster than he was in Melee, where he was better than Mario, because they forgot to make him be slower. And his shocking return in 4 makes me worry that he will return again in the next Smash game, despite being a character with no potential or reason to return. So even though the game Dr. Mario can be entertaining, this character is not a favorable Smash character at all for me. And we have too many Mario characters anyway, so face it. Pichu. Another one of the clone characters from Melee, and a commonly hated one at that. Besides being a clone of Pikachu, Pichu's moveset damages itself quite a lot. Like half of its moves, the ones that use electricity, all damage itself. Which makes sense for the character's lore, though it's still annoying. And it's the lightest character in the game, even lighter than Jigglypuff. Which means Pichu gets smashed out at the lowest amounts of damage. That combination is not fun to play with at all. What saves me from putting Pichu in F is my recent growing to appreciate Pichu more as an artist on DeviantArt with my own Pichu OC, Judy Sparkle, and how fun it was to make pictures of her. If it wasn't for that, I'd still have Pichu in F. Though the hurting itself and being the latest character in the game and also being a clone is still going to put it into D for me. Falco Lombardi, one of the Star Fox clones. Falco did make sense to be in Melee, being the brash kind of side to Star Fox, and is a pretty cool character in general. And he has some differences to Fox, being a lot lighter and being a lot heavier than Fox and having higher jumping, though being much slower. And Falco is pretty fun to play, unless you're playing Smash for 3DS and Wii U, where they nerfed him for whatever reason. And he still has some cool quotes, like hands off my prey. So, I do like Falco for the fact that he's that brash character that wishes he can outperform his leader, and he is more different to Fox than some of the other clone characters, so I'll give him a pass. Marth, the OG Fire Emblem protagonist. Marth is a pretty cool character in general. I do like the concept of a swordsman that's fast, as opposed to the more sluggish and heavy-hitting one that Link is, and the fact that Marth's sword does different damage depending on how you hit the opponent with it is also a nice touch. As you know, his sword is stronger at the tip and weaker at the center, so you have to be very precise while landing hits with him to get the most out of him. I also like how he finally has English voice acting in Ultimate, which he kind of deserved because Fire Emblem's been out outside of Japan for a while. So, yeah. Marth is definitely one of the cooler characters in Melee, and if it wasn't for his inclusion in Melee, the Fire Emblem series would probably still be Japan only. True fact. Lucina. Lucina's inclusion in 4 was kind of the same as that of Dr. Mario's. She was going to just be an alternate costume of Marth, and they just made her be separate so she could show off her own personality. You know. So that's why those clone characters were in that game, despite Sakurai debunking clones in that game. At least in Ultimate, they actually admit she's a clone by marking her as Marth's Echo Fighter. Marth and Lucina are a little bit different, because Lucina doesn't do more damage at the tip and less damage at the edges. Rather, her sword does the same amount all the way around. And Lucina is considerably better than Marth in the game for that reason. However, Fire Emblem does have way too many reps, and a lot of them are irrelevant, so I just never grew to appreciate her. Young Link. Young Link was one of the most baseless character additions in the series, definitely where Melee is concerned. Just a lighter and faster version of Link. You know, he's not as strong as Link and is lighter, he's just faster and has the ability to wall jump, and that's literally all. The only reason why he's in Ultimate is because they vowed to bring back every character that was ever in the series, and yeah. I'll put him in C because it's not like I dislike him. He just has no potential whatsoever compared to pretty much anybody else in the entire roster to return in the next game. So, that hurts. Ganondorf. Ganondorf is easily one of the worst characters to ever be in the series. Sure, he's a pretty awesome-looking Legend of Zelda villain, and deserved to be in the Smash roster, as he was a highly requested character in Melee. The only problem is, for whatever reason, they decided to make him be a clone of Captain Falcon, instead of giving him his own amazing moveset. And then in Brawl, not only did they intentionally not revise him to be no longer a clone of Captain Falcon, he was also arguably the worst character in the game. He doesn't change a bit in 4, and in Ultimate, even though they did change his moveset so he uses that sword he teased us with in Melee, and is a little bit different, he's still the worst character in the game, apparently. An undeserving clone that's completely inferior, just being stronger and heavier, though being a lot slower and having the second to worst recovery ability. That was very undeserving what they did to the King of Evil. And as well as that, Ganondorf also managed to infuriate me during my How to Draw series I'm doing on my YouTube channel, where I vowed I'd do every character in Smash, where Screen Recorder was failing on me while I was trying to draw the character, a problem which he's a hard character to draw, so he doesn't even have that going for him. So even though Ganondorf is this amazing villain character, He is disgraceful at the fullest extent of a Smash fighter, enough to be put into the F tier. Absolutely disgusting what Smash did to him. Mewtwo. Mewtwo's a cool Pokemon, though one of the most overrated characters in Super Smash Bros. I mean, he was garbage in Melee, and even in Ultimate, he's statistically the worst of the 8 Pokemon reps. And I love Lucario, so that also doesn't help. I mean, his moveset is cool, and he's fast, and I also like how he can wall jump in foreign Ultimate. Though the combination of being tall and super light is not exactly healthy, and his attacks do have limited range. And because I strongly prefer Lucario, and Mewtwo is a lot more popular because of the Gen Wonders in this world, that kind of grinds me a bit as well. So, I do think he's alright to use in casual fun, and his moveset does look cool, so it's not like I dislike him. I'll take him over some of the other Pokemon characters in the game for sure. Roy. Never was I much of a Roy fan. He was included in Melee only to promote Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade, which came out shortly after. He's a clone, and he has a tendency to be inconsistent. He's somehow high tier in Ultimate, though, being a character that inversely the Marth is stronger at the middle and weaker at the tip of the sword, and having a bad recovery ability as well. And he's just another Fire Emblem character, which has way too many reps in general. So, the fact that he looks cool, and how I appreciate that he has English voice acting now, and his voice doesn't sound much different from his original voice, kind of save him, in a way. Though I'm still putting him in the C. Chrom. Lo and behold, another Fire Emblem character, from the same game Lucina's from. Chrom being an Echo in Ultimate makes sense because he was the character people wanted from Awakening in 4 originally, and he was planned for 4. So, he would later come back as Roy's Echo fighter. Like Lucina, Chrom's sword is the same all the way around, so he does have a little bit of difference from Roy. It's just the fact that he has an abysmal recovery move is what really lets him down, and again, he's just another Fire Emblem character. Though I would say he's my favorite of the Echo fighters, I'm still putting him in the C. Mr. Game & Watch. Mr. Game & Watch was Melee's inclusion of a character that they put in as a character nobody was expecting. Like, they like to do that in every generation, just to spice it up a little bit. You understand. Mr. Game & Watch is modeled after the people you save in the game Fire, which the Melee trophy tries to make clear. And he gets different moves, at least to his A moveset, in every game in the series. He's also like the 3rd best character in the game, apparently, in Smash Ultimate, which is a shock. I'm not a super huge fan of the character. He's pretty hard to use, and he's also very lightweight, which makes sense, because he's a flat stick figure-like character. Though I do appreciate that they went as far as to include a character as old as 1980 before Pac-Man. And he is a decent inclusion for the retro value, so I'd say he's whatever. Meta Knight, Kirby's rival. In Brawl, as we all know, Meta Knight was the most busted character in the game. Being super fast, decently strong, and virtually impossible to knock out because of his recovery ability. In the latter games, they obviously nerfed him, and now he's a lot more fair statistically. Though Meta Knight is a pretty sensible character choice, and a decently cool character in general, he can be relatively annoying, specifically as a Smash fighter. And I'm just not that big of a fan of him in general, so I'd say he's whatever. Pits. the protagonist of the 1986 NES classic Kid Icarus, and a character that Sakurai himself souped up with in Kid Icarus Uprising. That's why Pit was a rare case where a returning character actually got some different special moves that were completely different from its moves before. At least the upper dash arm is completely different from the angel ring. I feel like Pit is a pretty balanced character with a good recovery ability, though he is kind of weak and struggles to launch the opponent. So, Pit's a character I enjoy for his personality and his hilarious star knockout quote, "I never learned how to read!" So, you know. If you haven't already, watch a long play of Kid Icarus Uprising. The game has a pretty good sense of humor. I never played the game for myself, though. I only played the NES one. And if I get around to it, I'll play the Game Boy one as well, now that it's on Nintendo Classics. Dark Pit. For the same reason as Lucina and Dr. Mario. Why? Why did you have to make him be a clone instead of an alternate costume, instead of just cutting him from the game completely? Echo Fighters are a complete waste of space in the roster in general. And while Kid Icarus Uprising is obviously a Sakurai game, that alone should not give Dark Pit potential to stick around in the next game. I mean, he is a little bit different from Pit with the electroshock arm and how it launches the opponent, and the silver bow, though it's just not quite enough, and I can't stand clones, usually, so, yeah. Zero Suit Samus. Samus Aran without the power suit. Again, the reason why they were separated was because the 3DS couldn't do transforming characters. And they tried to give some tweaks to Zero Suit Samus to make it so that she struggles to knock out a little bit less with her high heels. I mean, her jet boots, as well as a few other tweaks here and there, which was an interesting touch. And while Zero Suit Samus is a much lighter and weaker version of Samus with better speed and jumping, she's still pretty fun to play, especially casually, and can prove to be a character that's worth mastering. And, you know, she's a good-looking woman in general. So, I'll put her an A. Wario. I am a pretty big fan of the Wario Land games, some of the older ones, like the ones on the Game Boy, and I love Wario Land 4 on the Game Boy Advance. And once I get better at it, maybe I'll play a little bit more of Wario World as well on the GameCube app. I just got stuck on one of the red crystal clusters, and I'll have to look up what to do in it later. However, Wario in Smash is much more focused on WarioWare, which is just a bunch of little instant action games, as you know. And Wario is a pretty funny character. One of those characters that makes gross humor look pretty good with his down special and his garlic breath, you know. He's just one of those characters that's intended to have a really bad sense of humor. And after all, his name, Wario, is Bad Mario, with Walu, the Japanese word for bad. So, Wario's a pretty fun character to play in Smash, and I do like some of the games he's in, so I'll put him an A. Solid Snake. I actually knew Solid Snake as a character before he was announced for Brawl, because I actually started on the PlayStation, and I had a compilation disc of demos and videos for games that were coming out in 1998 to start, and Metal Gear Solid was one of them. So I was quite ecstatic to see that this character was getting added in Brawl. And as a matter of fact, in Brawl and Ultimate, Snake is one of the best characters in the game, and one of the funnest to use once you get the hang of him. Though he can be pretty difficult to master if you're a more casual player. I love his moveset, he's really fun to use. And while it was pretty obvious that he was not going to return in 4, I still enjoy his inclusion in the game in general. So, yeah. Because he was my main in Brawl, I have to put him in S. Ike, another Fire Emblem character. Ike is from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance on the GameCube and Radiant Dawn on the Wii. While people basically see Ike as the new Roy in that game, he is different enough. By moveset, he's not exactly a Marth clone. So, I'll give him credit for that. He's a sluggish heavy hitter with a poor recovery ability, and he's statistically the worst of the Fire Emblem characters in the game, in Ultimate even, I think. So, you know. I understand that Ike has a lot of fans as well as a lot of haters. Just, no matter how you look at it, he is a Fire Emblem character, and that franchise just gets way too much love from Nintendo, in general. Pokemon Trainer. Unlike a lot of people that think the trainer is an awesome idea for a character inclusion, I think he's enthusiasm for the trash can. While a 3-in-1 rotation character does sound like a cool idea, it's actually really stupid. The problem is that the Pokemon get tired after they stay out in battle for a while. So instead of being able to stick to one true blue fighter throughout the entire round, you're actually forced to rotate between the 3 regularly, and one of them is terrible. I absolutely hate what they did to Charizard in the later games. By giving him Flare Blitz as his new side special, a move that badly hurts himself even if you miss. And then they cut Rock Smash completely and kept Flare Blitz in Ultimate just so they could retain his presence from Smash for 3DS and Wii U. And Charizard was one of the worst in the game in 4. So that didn't need to happen as well. And Squirtle is very light with a poor recovery. And while Ivysaur does have fun moments, his recovery is even worse, having to rely on tethering. And I just can't stand the revolving factor and being forced to rotate between the characters throughout the course of the fight. So, unpopular opinion, yeah. Diddy Kong. In Smash 4, Diddy Kong was the best character in the game. And he was about as ridiculous as Meta Knight was in Brawl, almost. Being an already top-tier character that got a bunch of buffs that weren't necessary. And that bothered me. And while I am happy that Diddy Kong got nerfed in Ultimate, he's still considerably a top-tier character. I can just tell that he's a little bit less broken. Diddy Kong can be pretty annoying to go up against, especially if he keeps using banana peels to make a trip throughout the fight. And he does have fun moments playing as him, as long as you're alright with being a weaker character that focuses more on speed and aerial mobility than full power. He's kind of like the brain counterpart to Donkey Kong being the brawn in a way. Diddy Kong's alright, I'd say. Lucas. Unlike Ness and more recently Nintendo, Lucas never will be fully appreciated outside of Japan. Not even on Nintendo Classics. He's a clone of Ness, only partially, though still a clone, and he's completely inferior. There is no reason why you should favor Lucas over Ness, except maybe fighting against him, since in competitive, Ness is completely superior. And yeah, this character, definitely not a fan. Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh boy. Sonic the Hedgehog was a character they added in Brawl literally at the last minute because Sega thought it over and was like, oh, alright, we'll let you put him in the game. resulting in the game getting delayed. And then the game got delayed again because of Jigglypuff and a couple of others that didn't need to be in the game. And after being the kind of mediocre fighter in Brawl, Sonic was kept, unlike Snake in 4, and they gave him a lot of revisions to make him be better, and they made him be top tier. And then in Ultimate, even though Steve is apparently number 1 on the tier list, Sonic is still considerably the second best character and definitely the most broken. A character that can run away for almost the entire battle and has a bunch of moves that are hard to punish. And you cannot say it's fun to fight against this character. You just can't. It's impossible. And again, kind of like popularity reasons, like Sonic is more popular than nearly all, if not all, of the other characters in the game. After me not being the biggest fan of his games. Kind of wears me out a bit as well. So, I'm actually going to put him in D. Deal with it. King Dedede, the supposed main antagonist of the Kirby series, even though the real antagonist is, by the lore, the dark matter of, the galaxy where Dreamland is. King Dedede is definitely a character that's more goofy than evil, and it makes sense to be a character that Masahiro Sakurai himself created by personality. In fact, Sakurai even voiced King Dedede's grunts in the game in Kirby 64, which you probably already knew. King Dedede is honestly not that great in the game. He's very slow, so slow you can hardly land hits with him. And he's not really that fun to play. The most satisfying outcome you can get from playing as him is if you break somebody's shields with his forward smash. And then you can use the jet hammer to blow him to oblivion. Other than that, though, King Dedede's not really that special. Through and through. Olimar. I have never been entirely sure what to think about Olimar, honestly. I did play a little bit of one of the Pikmin games, though never finished it. And Olimar is a character that a lot of people dread as a Smash fighter because of how obnoxious it is to fight against him and to play as him, with memorization of the colors of the Pikmin and what they do. I haven't that much of a bias about Olimar myself, as I haven't been that interested in playing him, so I'd say I put him in C as well. Lucario. If you've seen some of my videos and have seen the outro screens, you would know that Lucario is one of my favorite Pokemon. I would say he's my favorite Pokemon of all of them, to be quite honest. If it wasn't for Lucario's inclusion in Brawl, I wouldn't have played any of the games Gen 4 and onward. Because I just didn't find interesting continuing after Gen 3, though Lucario and Brawl kind of persuaded me, and I would play up to Gen 9 from there. And I used the Lucario in a lot of those games, and he's pretty decently good even in the Pokemon franchise. I do think they ruined him a little bit as a Smash fighter, I'll be honest. Because the aura mechanic, which makes him significantly stronger the more damage he takes, makes him a bit inconsistent since he's super weak at low damage, and at high damage his recovery move can be easy to mess up. And he doesn't even use his aura bones, for cripe's sake. Why not, Smash Team? The aura bone's iconic in the anime. Oh well. I still love Lucario's design and concept, and it's his inclusion in Smash that got me interested in Pokemon again. So even though Lucario is one of the most hated characters in the game, mainly because of Mewtwo, I'm putting Lucario in S. I hate all people that hate this character. Rob, Robotic Operating Buddy. The Mr. Game & Watch-like character in Brawl. The character nobody was really expecting. Rob isn't even a video game character. He's a peripheral the NES needed to play a couple of games, Stack Up and Gyromite. So, apart from his inclusion in Mario Kart DS, nobody could really have expected this, logically. And I guess it didn't help that Sakurai said Pit would be Brawl's only classic character. Rob has a good, unique moveset. He's definitely a character worth mastering, as he's one of the best in the game in Ultimate as well. And some of the stuff that he has is kind of BS going up against. He's a robot. I like robots. I mean, he's pretty cool. Toon Link. Basically, young Link revamped in The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And he made a few other appearances after that, the latest one being Triforce Heroes on the 3DS. And like young Link, Toon Link is just a faster and lighter version of Link. I wouldn't even necessarily say weaker, because in Brawl, Toon Link was busted. And he's about the same in 4. Though I think in Ultimate, he's below young Link on the tier list. So in my opinion, that kind of makes matters worse. He's a clone. He's exactly the same character as young Link in essence. And the fact that we have 3 Links basically hinders the chance for us to ever get a newcomer from the Legend of Zelda series. And it doesn't help that his inclusion in Brawl was last minute, alongside Jigglypuff. So my opinion is, he's a piece of crap and I freaking hate him. Wolf O'Donnell. The final of the characters from Brawl that was included in the game last minute. He's another clone of Fox like Falco. He's stronger, though slower than Falco, and also has worse recovery than Fox. So, it makes sense to an extent because Wolf is directly Fox's rival, and it helps for the villain value, though that's about all it helps, because Wolf is from a washed-up franchise, and it was clear that he wasn't going to return in 4, nor will he be returning, chances are, in the next game. So, I see no point in it at all. Villager. Animal Crossing makes sense for character inclusion, because it's one of Nintendo's top franchises. The character has an interesting moveset, using various tools and stuff from the Animal Crossing series for his whole moveset. And in casual play, he can be fun to play as, though not that great of a character competitively. And they can be a bit annoying to go up against, so, I'd say the Villager's decent. Yeah. Mega Man. Mega Man was one of my favorite character additions in Smash for 3DS and Wii U in general. I tried out the classic Mega Man series on Virtual Console on the 3DS to hype up for Smash for 3DS and Wii U, and for a casual player, I got pretty decently good with Mega Man. So he was one of my mains in those games. I love his moveset, even though he is a character that has more projectiles than anybody else, which can make fighting certain characters like Fox or Pit dangerous. And it does bother me a little bit that Mega Man is completely silent in the game after having voice acting in Mega Man 8, Powered Up, and 11. And even to an extent, some of the arcade fighter games that they had. Actually, somebody on my DeviantArt asked me to sign a petition for Mega Man to be in his depiction from Mega Man 11 in the next game. I turned it down, of course, because we all know petitions are completely useless. And there's also no promise that Mega Man will return in the next game. Still, I love classic Mega Man a lot, and I'm definitely putting him in S, where he belongs. Wii Fit Trainer. The Wii Fit Trainer is just another one of those characters you have to appreciate for the humor in it. She was another character that nobody could logically have expected, and rightfully so. Though it's a serious addiction because Wii Fit, though not a game a lot of hardcores played, was an important title of a milestone for the Wii. It is kind of funny to watch them in action, giving fitness instructions for their smashes and using yoga poses for their whole moveset. So the Wii Fit Trainer is a character you have to like just for the humor. Masahiro Sakurai, the game's creator, is very good at humor, after all. Rosalina. Rosalina is definitely one of the better girls from the Mario series in general. I like the concept of being another kind of combo character that's kind of a cross between Olimar and the Ice Climbers with Rosalina and Luma, and how they can fight simultaneously even while they're apart from each other. That was a cool concept. They did get nerfed in Ultimate, so they're not as good in that game, though I still like Rosalina's concept quite a lot, so I'll put her in A. Little Mac. Another retro character, debuting in 1984 in the arcade, which is where the wireframe bod alt comes from. Little Mac made perfect sense to be in 4, and was a highly requested character, though, like Ganondorf, he's definitely a character that Smash ruined with his moveset. Though very fast and powerful on the ground, he's virtually useless in the air, having completely unusable aerial attacks by damage and reach, and having worst recovery ability. And having the worst recovery ability of them all. He's not really that fun to use, he can be annoying to play against, and he's just not a good character in Smash at all, at the end of the day. So, I'd say he's a character they could do without in the next game. They can make him be an assist trophy again, like it was in Brawl. And Punch-Out's beyond saving anyway. Greninja. My favorite Pokemon from Generation 6. Though I didn't like Greninja at first as a Smash fighter, because I played Smash for 3DS before I played Pokemon X and Y. Shame on me. It took a while to get used to, though. I did grow to appreciate Greninja a bit more. He's kind of another character that focuses more on speed than power. So you have to like characters like Fox or Sheik in order to like Greninja, basically. And he's a dang amazing Pokemon in the Pokemon games. And I like frogs, so I have no reason not to put Greninja in S. He's a fantastic Pokemon, and I really hope that he can stick around in the next game. Maybe Lucario could have make a Lucario Z, and Greninja could have make a Greninja appear in their final smashes, with Pokemon Legend ZA. Even though they could still do the same final smashes before, you know. Mii Fighters. They were going to happen whether we liked it or not. Mii's were particularly popular in between the dates of the Wii and the Switch. And while they're not nearly as prominent on the Switches, they are still there. While it is kind of cool that they would have some kind of character customization in the game, yeah, it had to be Mii's. And while the different classes of Mii Fighters can have different movesets, the customization options are really limited. They're not really that fun to use. You can't use them at all in some game modes. Even online, you have to do it with friends, not with anyone, because of licensing issues and concerns about bullying. And their inclusion in the game just serves as a valid excuse for them to disconfirm characters later while downloadable content is in development, with the downloadable Mii Fighter outfits. So I see no point at all in the Mii Fighters, really. especially not the Mii sword fighter. So, yeah. Lady Palutena from Kid Icarus. Very unique character, a better version of a kind of Zelda-like character, especially in Ultimate, where she became an actual good fighter, though never a character I really got the hang of using. I never understood how the counter and reflect barrier combo down special worked in Ultimate. And while she does have fun moments, she's just not as fun to play as a lot of others, in my personal opinion. Though she is pretty and has a good personality, so I'll just put her in C. Pac-Man. If you've been familiar with my channel for a while, you would know that I love Namco arcade games, like Pac-Man, just to name the most iconic example. And I have a lot of Let's Plays of Namco arcade games with commentary on my channel, including Pac-Man and plenty more, so feel free to check those out if you haven't already. And I'm still doing more of them in a weekly manner, as I'm able to feel myself to do. So I really wanted Pac-Man to be in Smash 4 after I heard that Namco was co-developing the game, and lo and behold, he was. I love how they gave him movements based on some other arcade games besides just Pac-Man. And especially in Ultimate, where he somehow became high tier, he's pretty fun to play and pretty fun to watch. I love the Namco roulette with all the sprites that he summons and the music medleys. Because it's like, even though I didn't know what games those were from in the past, I do know what games they're from now because of all the games I bought from arcade archives. So Pac-Man is definitely going an S for me, being by far my most nostalgic character. Robin. Robin is probably the most unique Fire Emblem character with their moveset, being these magic users that focus on elemental spells from their tomes as opposed to their swords. And then their swords have that's an electrical sword for their smashes and aerials. These have limited uses before they become temporarily disabled, and the character is very slow, which lets them down a little bit. I do understand why they chose Robin instead of Chrom in 4, because it was easier to come up with a unique moveset for them, and Robin will definitely be the Awakening rep to return in the next game, so I quite like him a bit. I didn't at first, though I definitely grew to like them a bit better later, so. Shulk. The main protagonist of the first entry in the Xenoblade Chronicles series. Shulk makes perfect sense to be in Smash 4 because Xenoblade Chronicles was a hit on the Wii. And now Xenoblade is turning out to be one of those franchises that'll need a newcomer with every title moving forward. Shulk's pretty fun to use, especially in Ultimate. The Monado Arts is a cool concept, being able to adjust his stats to suit the convenience of the situation of the fight. And he's also another one of those characters that's in it for the quotes. Like, I'm really feeling it! And a few others. So, I like Shulk a lot, though I haven't played Xenoblade. And probably never will, because I'm not into role-playing games. Though I do like the character and the concept a lot. Bowser Jr. The son of Bowser, the only son of Bowser, a misconception about the Koopalings that Smash doesn't help that Shigeru Miyamoto actually had to clear up. Bowser Jr. is a very unique character in the game, being that he fights in the Junior Clown cart, which has a different arsenal of weaponry and stuff. Though Bowser Jr. is not really that fun to play as, in my opinion, and he's also not that great in the game. Though I grew to appreciate a lot of Mario characters and a lot of other Nintendo characters, Bowser Jr. he's alright. He's not bad in general, just not the character that appeals to me as much. I'll put him in C. He's not a character I use often, though. Not a character I really hate either. Duck Hunt Duo, or Duck Hunt in the international and Japanese versions of the game. Another one of those characters they threw in just for the spiciness, to throw in some characters we weren't expecting. Duck Hunt, released on the Famicom in 1984, which featured the dog and duck, was a pretty cool concept. You can't really expect it to come to Nintendo Classics, though, unless they decide to use the zapper with the mouse controls or some other stupid function like that. It was on the Wii U as Virtual Console with the Wii Remote, so at least there's that. Duck Hunt is pretty fun to play casually. Not so much competitively, because some of the moves that they have suck. I could never ever land a hit with their down special Wild Gunman. The only part about that move that redeems itself is the gunmen dropping their pants after you hit them. That's about it. Though some of their moves are pretty fun, and I do like the idea of a dog, an actual realistic quadruped dog, being the playable character in Smash, which is pretty funny. So, Duck Hunt's alright. I'll put him in B. Ryu Hoshi, the main face of Capcom's Street Fighter series, and considerably the OG fighting game character. Having debuted in the arcade in 1987, just before Mega Man. Ryu makes sense as a surprise DLC character, and I definitely think third-party characters are better fitting for DLC than base game, with the exception of more iconic ones. So it was a nice surprise in Smash for 3DS and Wii U. Ryu doesn't have a rational Smash moveset. You have to press A in different ways for his physical moves, and learn the combinations of his special moves to get the most out of them from Street Fighter, and he has a tendency to be a bit inconsistent. So he's not really a character I play often. And it doesn't help that Terry Bogard and Kazuya Mishima are considerably better in the game than him, so not really a character I use at all. Ken Masters. And as a matter of fact, I was displeased that Ryu, of all characters, got an Echo Fighter in Smash Ultimate, even though I knew it made sense. Because Ken Masters was like the original Echo Fighter, if I may. So, he does make sense. And his moveset is different from Ryu's as well. A little bit different. Though Ryu is considerably better than Ken in the game. So, like Ryu, Ken's not a character I really appreciate that much. Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. Definitely the most iconic character from the Final Fantasy franchise. A heck of a surprise for Smash for 3DS and Wii U. So, well, I'm not that familiar with Final Fantasy. And again, I have no plans to play it, because it's a long role-playing game. I do like Cloud's inclusion in Smash. He's fun to use, the limit break mechanic and finishing touch are a cool concept. And apart from his bad recovery ability and lightweight, he's definitely a cool character addition that's pretty good to master. So, I quite like Cloud. I'm going to put him in A. Corrin. Another case exactly like Roy. Corrin's inclusion in Smash 4 was only to promote a game that was coming out afterward with Fire Emblem Fates, and then that game wasn't as popular as some of the others that have representation in the roster. Why, Nintendo? Although Corrin's not that bad in the game, they're definitely not a character I would use over others. Just because of the Fire Emblem overabundance, and while their moveset is alright, it's just not that. It's a little bit inconsistent with their smash, their forward smash and stuff. And the character's just completely irrelevant, so not really a character I appreciate that much in general. And I cannot see him returning in the next game in the series. Bayonetta. The grand finale character from Smash for 3DS and Wii U from the fighter ballad that they did. Bayonetta from Platinum Games does make perfect sense to be a downloadable content character in Smash 4. With Bayonetta's success, particularly on the Nintendo consoles, though her first game was actually on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. So, basically she turned into a Nintendo character in a way. And her inclusion in the game makes sense because she's basically the opposite of Palutena by nature and background. She has a fun moveset, she can be broken at moments, though she's still a pretty cool character, and I'd say she's worthy of a B for me. Inkling from Splatoon. The most blatant character addition they could have chosen for Ultimate, with how well Splatoon was on the Wii U and the Switches. The Inklings are a very unique character, with the crossover of how ink works in the game from Splatoon, and you have to recharge their ink regularly to get their moveset working right. You do it by holding a shield and holding B while shielding, just in case you haven't known. And they can be really fun to play, especially in casual matches. An 8-way match with the Inkling where each one has their own ink color can make a real mess on the stage. So, you know. And the Inklings are cute and fashionable, so they're a nice concept through and through. I'm putting this one an A. There you go. Ridley, the iconic antagonist of the Metroid series. A character that they put in the game just so people would shut up about him. I mean, he was far and away the most requested character for 4. So, even though he was considerably too big, even by Sakurai, they were like, let's just make him be a fighter in Ultimate so people would stop complaining about it. And they did. While Ridley's not that fun to play, I wouldn't say he's one of the worst characters in the game in general, and he can be fun in casual performances. His down special skewer requires a critical hit to be viable, and Space Pirate Rush is easy to self-destruct with on accident, especially if you use it in mid-air, so he's definitely a character you have to be careful with using. Regardless of how you look at it, though, Metroid definitely needed more representation, and Ridley was just the best possible choice back in the day. Maybe in the next game we'll get Silux from Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, originally Metroid Prime Hunters. Simon and Richter Belmont from Castlevania. I did play some older Castlevania games in Castlevania Anniversary Collection after Ultimate released, just so I could get more familiar with Simon as a character. And a lot of those games are mighty hard. They're not for casuals. As a Smash fighter, I do appreciate the effort they took in combining elements from the different Belmonts for their movesets, and how their special moves work compared to how they worked in the games. Though they're not all that great in the game because their whips require a direct hit with the Morning Star for launch, and if you're up against a solid wall with the opponent, it becomes completely useless. And it's really hard to land direct hits on them in general, so that kind of hurts along with their bad recovery ability. And I also definitely think Crash Bandicoot deserved to be in the game more than them. Though, Castlevania does technically make more sense, being from a Japanese game developer. And because Konami already had Metal Gear, so, whatever. And again, Richter's a clone. A cool-looking clone, though a clone nonetheless. And he plays identical to Simon. They have no differences. So, yeah. King K. Rool from the Donkey Kong Country series. Another one of the most overrated characters, in my opinion. Like Ridley, K. Rool was a character they previously deemed too big. And they just put him in Ultimate so people would shut up about him. And while he is powerful and heavy, and his copter pack is good for recovery, that doesn't make him one of the most superior fighters. In fact, while people thought he was great in the game at first, he ended up being one of the worst in the game statistically in the end. Although the Golden Gut does give him super armor, it'll bust and immobilize him after taking a lot of hits at once. And being one of the biggest characters also means he's one of the easiest to land hits on. And unlike a lot of people, I just didn't think he was that fun to play. So, yeah. You got what you got, people. Isabelle from Animal Crossing. I haven't played Animal Crossing for myself, so the characters are not what I'm really familiar with and how they are in the game. As a Smash fighter, though, Isabelle really sets me off. Her moveset is similar enough to the villager that she can be considered a partial clone. She's not really that fun to play, and she is a nuisance at best to play against. The most annoying kind of opponent to fight in Smash is one that spams grabs and throws, and Isabelle does exactly that with her side special fishing rod. It also doesn't help that her forward and up smashes are hard to hit with, at least in my opinion. And she's, bleh. I can't stand Isabelle as a Smash fighter. I'm sorry. Incineroar. The quote-unquote star Pokemon of Generation 7. Even though a lot of people hate him. More so for what Litten eventually becomes. I'm not sure if Incineroar was the best choice of a Smash fighter, to be honest. As a Smash fighter, he's not terrible. He's just mediocre. He's the slowest character in the game. His recovery isn't great. And he has that tendency to pose for the audience, which even though you can cancel, is still pretty annoying. And I definitely think Decidueye would have been a better character statistically. And Decidueye is a little bit more relevant now because of Pokemon Legends Arceus. Though that's obviously not going to help him in the next Smash series after this. I think Incineroar has no potential to return in the next game. And he's not that fun to play as, at least not in my opinion. I think Incineroar in general is disappointing for what Litten could have evolved into. And I just think he's undeserving as a Smash fighter. So, yeah. Piranha Plant. This was obviously a joke. A really bad joke. We didn't really need another Mario rep. I know everybody really wants Waluigi to finally be a playable character, and maybe he will be in the next game. And then the Smash team was like, screw Waluigi, why not make a Piranha Plant be a playable character instead, just to troll people? And then the Piranha Plant was one of the worst characters in the game according to the tier list. I see no point in adding a character like this. And like I said, Mario did not need another rep like this, so, yeah. Right back at you, Sakurai. Right back at you. Joker. The first entry in the Fighter's Pass, Joker, is from Persona 5, which was originally on the PlayStation 3, I believe. Persona is another one of those role-playing games, and it's also an adult game. Like, the games in it are rated M for mature. Like Metal Gear and like Bayonetta. So, definitely an unexpected, though great surprise of a character addition. Although Joker is easily one of the best characters in competitive, he's definitely not a character I and others use well, because he's one of the hardest characters to master by moveset. The arc sim mechanic is a cool concept and helps him a lot in Desperation, so that along with the BA look and the cool concept of being a thief that fights with a butcher knife, it's a very, very nice touch, so, I'll put him in B. Dragon Quest Hero. This is definitely a very, very gimmicky character. The magic power mechanic and their down special, along with how their other specials work as well. Definitely one of the hardest characters to get used to playing, if anybody can physically get used to playing them at all. Yet the computer can wreck with them because it's able to make quick selections with the down special no human logically can. I do think the magic power mechanic is a bit annoying because you have to hold B to do the fully charged versions of moves and stuff, and that they consume a lot of magic power, rendering them useless for a while later. And how the heck is anybody supposed to select what move they want to use of the ones they're randomly given with their down special under pressure? And it doesn't help that they, kind of had a budget issue with this character during development that could have hurt them. Or at least that's what I heard once. So, I'm not a huge fan of this character, and again, it's just another role-playing game character, so, yeah. Banjo and Kazooie. Another one of those characters people begged for to be in the game for so long and finally got in Smash Ultimate. I mean, Microsoft is definitely getting a lot more friendly to Nintendo in recent years, so it only makes sense. While it does make sense for them to be in the game, I definitely think they're also kind of overrated and not that great as Smash fighters. Especially according to what the tier list says. So, you know. I mean, they're cute and they're a cool concept. They're alright, I'd say. I wouldn't put them any higher than B. So, yeah. Terry Bogard from the King of Fighters and Fatal Fury series. Terry is kind of like Ryu, except more consistent. He doesn't have alternate A moves that you can press in different ways for different physical moves, which makes him more consistent. And you can use the same special commands for Ryu's specials to do stronger versions of Terry's specials. Hadouken is the same for Burn Knuckle, Tatsumaki is the same for Crack Shoot, and Shoryuken is the same for Power Dunk. And I do like Terry's personality a lot, and the okay meme that he does. So, yeah. Terry's pretty fun to play. I do prefer him over the Street Fighter duo for sure. And I'd say he's worthy of an A for me. One of the Fatal Fury games is on the SNES app, so maybe I'll check that out if I get around to it later. Byleth. Of all the Fire Emblem characters we have in the series, Byleth is easily my least favorite. Why did Nintendo think they should close the first Fighter's Pass with a Fire Emblem newcomer instead of a character that was sure to blow everybody's mind? That was not a professional move, in my opinion. And while Fire Emblem Three Houses might be a more popular game in the series, and it might be enough to make him definitely return in the next game, I still hate their moveset. They're very slow, their moves are very slow, they rely on tethering, and the Sword of the Creator Up special being able to grab the opponent in the air and then spike them to certain death is the biggest BS I've ever seen in the series. Even statistically, according to the competitive tier list, they're middle tier, so. And also, Byleth is a teacher, and I just hate characters and elements that remind me of school, so. Yeah, well deserved. Min Min. As somebody that actually played the game ARMS on the Switch, I was very glad to see one of the characters from it get added to the roster in Smash Ultimate's DLC. Min Min makes sense because I think she's the favorite of the ARMS game creator, and the most popular one in general. even though she might not be the best character in that game. And she has a pretty fun concept with the dragon arm being able to blast the opponent at a distance, and having the longest reaching smashes in the game, specifically forward smashes. The Megawatt arm is very powerful. The Ram, if you master it, can be good for interception. And she's really fun to play in the game, though one of the hardest characters in the game to master. So because of that, and because I actually played the game that she's from, just wanting to play a certain game on the Switch while it was just out, I actually quite love her. Steve, the Minecraft characters. Minecraft does make sense to be a surprise addition in Smash Ultimate. It was so much of a surprise, in fact, that it broke the internet, if you may remember, because Minecraft is like the world's most popular singular video game. Steve is apparently the best character in the game in Ultimate, first on the tier list. I do think he's a character that depends on the stage with how good he is in it, because you have to have different stages with different materials to use his special moves with the mining, and even his physical moves. Though it is pretty funny to see him fight with movements based on items throughout the Minecraft series, or the original Minecraft game. And he has moments where he can be pretty fun to play. Though I'm not a fan of the Minecraft game after actually playing it for myself, I do like the character's inclusion in Smash. So, yeah. Sephiroth, the antagonist of Final Fantasy VII. What I didn't like about Cloud's inclusion in Smash 4 was the very limited contribution from the Final Fantasy franchise in it, having literally no trophies other than Cloud's own, and Let the Battle Begin and Fight On being the only songs from the game in it. And they continued that in Smash Ultimate at first. I never would have thought that that was a hint that they were adding another Final Fantasy character to the game later. So, Sephiroth is the main antagonist, the main villain of Final Fantasy VII, and is a guy that means business with his love to destroy. Sephiroth might not be as good in the game as Cloud, because the Masamune sword requires a hit at the tip for optimum damage. His special moves can be hard to master, and he's the same exact weight as Mewtwo, which is like the third lightest character in the game, so he gets smashed out and perishes very early. Sephiroth can be fun to play, though, and has a cool comeback mechanic with the one wing after he takes a lot of damage to improve his speed and jumping. And seeing him destroy the world for his final smash is also pretty dope. So, I think Sephiroth's a cool character. I'm gonna put him in A as well. Pyra and Mythra, the Xenoblade Girl duo. While a lot of people were expecting Rex, I guess it does make more sense that Pyra and Mythra themselves be the fighter instead, for a kind of combo character, in another case like Sheik and Zelda in the older games, which they just couldn't do in Smash for 3DS and Wii U. Pyra and Mythra are a pretty cool concept in that they're a character that toggle between power and speed, in accordance with which one you need more throughout the course of a battle. There will be moments where you'll need to favor Mythra to go faster, or Pyra to be able to launch the opponent out. You have to be careful because they both have bad recovery, especially Pyra, though definitely characters worth mastering and very good in the game. And Xenoblade definitely deserved another rap, so Kazuya Mishima. Despite being the big Namco arcade fan, I still have yet to play a game in the Tekken series. I'm still very patiently waiting for Tekken to come to arcade archives. And it will eventually, I'm sure. We just have to wait a bit longer. In fact, there's not a single Tekken game on the Switches at this point, or any sign of one coming. There was one on the Wii U, wasn't there? And for Namco to contribute another rep besides Pac-Man, Tekken does make sense. And there is a good reason why they chose Kazuya instead of Heihachi, because of the devil mechanic with his moveset. And Kazuya has a pretty cool moveset that can be worth mastering with tilt directions. And is very powerful and heavy, and definitely a fighter that means business. Because I'm a big Namco fan, and am thrilled about having another Namco rep, and because he's pretty fun to play, I'll put him in there as well. So, yeah. And Sora, the main face of the Kingdom Hearts series. His face looks a bit blurred on the picture compared to the others. Is it because he's a Disney character? I'm not sure. What I know for a fact, though, is that a lot of you people are going to get really ticked at me. Some people hate popular characters purely out of jealousy, and that's exactly what's going on here. Sora somehow got into Smash, and Crash Bandicoot didn't. And after all of the other Fighters Pass characters were either from fighting games or role-playing games, except for Banjo and Kazooie, are you kidding? We all know how Disney are about working with other companies, and we have way too many sorties from Japanese role-playing games, and a bit too much representation from Square Enix as well, with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest already being in the game. So we didn't really need Kingdom Hearts. And again, just because he's high tier, that doesn't mean I think he's fun to play. He is high tier, I just dislike his moveset. His recovery is weird and easy to mess up if you're not familiar. He's very light, and he relies a bit too much on aerial combat, with the Keyblade doing more damage at the tip than the edges. And also, we have too many characters that use a counterattack for a down special, which he also doesn't help. And no matter how you look at it, negotiating with Disney is just asking for trouble later. So, deal with it. So with that, is going to wrap up my opinion on every character in Super Smash Bros. For a tier list video. Again, this is just my personal opinion, and I know some people are going to disagree with me, so I'll respect your opinion as long as you respect mine as well. It's unlikely that we will see word of a new Super Smash Bros. Game any sooner than summer. And I'm also thinking they're gonna do an upgrade pack for Smash Ultimate rather than an actual new game, though that's just because I'm pessimistic. Regardless, I would like to talk more about Smash as soon as they announce a new game, just in the event, so I'll be here to do so once the opportunity comes later. Consider subscribing, or at least checking out my channel if you like any of the franchises listed here, because I do plan to talk about them a lot and want to continue doing so for my channel. I am also a hobbyist artist that makes a lot of fan art of different game characters and franchises I like, and will occasionally come out with Let's Plays of mostly retro games that I feel like are worth playing for sport on my channel. I have quite a lot in mind, so consider checking me out if you are interested. Once the opportunity comes, there will be some more Smash discussion content from me, so stay tuned for that and plenty more. With that, wraps up this video. I am Crolister, Master of Ponage. Thanks for watching, stay tuned for more, and I'll see you on my next upload. Bye.